Over the last 30 years, remarkably little has been done to document the history of financial, therapeutic, and operational policy with respect to addiction and behavioral treatment. As part of our mission, C4 has developed a series of films capturing this important oral history.
This is an illness that if you don't understand it completely, how can you treat it? If I hit the lottery, I would open up a treatment center for women with their children that had substance abuse treatment, a GED component, that had a work component. We talk a lot about how addiction affects every area of your life, and it certainly does, and yet we many times treat just a portion of it.
Andrew J. Moynihan, Ph.D., has been in the substance abuse treatment field since 1985 as a counselor and as the developer of substance abuse treatment programming. He served at detoxification centers, 28-day programs, residential programs, shelter programs, forensic programs, and he's worked as a senior counselor, program director, executive vice president, and clinical director.
The treatment isn't the problem. And the desire to get sober isn't the problem. Great desire to get sober. The problem is post-treatment, when that motivation to get sober begins to extinguish in the face of this big pile of difficulties that seem overwhelming. His motivation extinguishes. There was somebody that always bothered me. That was made clear to me when I was having lunch. I just signed on as clinical supervisor of a big organization, and I was out in the lawn, and we were having lunch on a beautiful summer day, and we were all smoking. That was the good old days. A fella came up the street with a bag over his shoulder with probably everything that he owned. Almost every one of the therapists around me said, "Andy, don't give me him. Andy, I had him last time. Andy, he doesn't want to get sober. He's only here for a spin dry. What's the matter with him?" Well, he's been here 10 times, and he doesn't want to get sober. And I said to them, the guy has been here 10 times, and he doesn't want to get sober? This guy's dying to get sober. Coming to a treatment facility is not an easy thing to do, especially one that I run, because it's a 6.5 day a week program, 8-10 hours a day. It's a lot of work. If you wanted 3 hots and a cot, there's a lot of places you could go, but you wouldn't want to come here. So I think the problem was that we weren't hearing guys like that. In my dissertation, I called him Charlie. Charlie, in my opinion and in my research, was just the opposite of what the therapist thought of him. Their impression over the years of these kinds of men and women who have 25 treatment and 50 halfway houses and that kind of thing. Charlie had great motivation for treatment. He usually, if you think about it, is the best client in the facility. He causes the least amount of trouble. He shows up at all the groups. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's Charlie. The treatment isn't the problem. And the desire to get sober isn't the problem. Great desire to get sober. The problem is post-treatment, when that motivation to get sober begins to extinguish in the face of this big pile of difficulties that seem overwhelming. His motivation extinguishes. I came to develop what I call purposeful motivational intervention. Not be confused with motivational interviewing, which Miller and Rolnick's program, wonderful program, taught it myself. We intervene purposely and solely, at least in this one treatment objective, on the intrinsic human motivation. What it became apparent to me was that there could be a deficit in human motivation, in this client's motivation, just like there could be a deficit in many areas. And there is a host of areas that Charlie needed help with. But his extinguishing motivation post-treatment was responsible for his relapses and eventual return to treatment. I saw motivation, individual human motivation, as a primary objective that we needed to reinforce, stabilize, underpin, and plan for post-treatment. My research for my dissertation took me to many colleges and interviewing many folks to understand that motivation, internal, intrinsic human motivation, is a branch off instinct. For example, the first woman to put her hand on a cave wall and outline her hand, or draw a picture of an elk or a buffalo on the wall, wasn't about shelter, mostly wasn't about love. It wasn't an instinctual act. It was an act of creation. And if you took that to its end, you would find a city. In the development of purposeful motivational intervention, I wanted therapists, counselors to understand what Charlie was all about. And so over the course of 30 years, a lot of treatment programs, a lot of curriculum that I wrote, a lot of supervision. PMI was established. You know, Charlie, he's the guy and the woman that nobody wants to deal with. Oh my God, you know, I've had him 6 times. We're not getting anywhere. And he's such an endearing client for the most part. And it breaks our hearts because many times Charlie doesn't make it. Charlie ODs. There's trauma involved with all addictions. I wrote the Kitty Dukakis treatment center program for women in Boston, and you know, we had to understand not only about PMI, but we had to understand that this woman is coming in with tremendous trauma. You know, living with dealers and pimps, and you know, you hear people say all the time, counselors say, you need to do it for you. No, you don't. I don't care who you do it for. Just do it. I just celebrated 37 years of recovery myself, and I didn't do it for myself. I did it because Judge Outlaw said, if you don't do it, you're going to jail. So that's not the motivation, the intrinsic motivation that'll keep you going, but it'll get you going. And if this woman is coming into treatment because some agency is going to take her children away unless she does, that's pretty good motivation to enter the doors. And over time, that'll change. I interviewed Dante Scarnecchia, a 30-plus year coach for the Patriots, and several other folks. And the long and the short of it is, I sat at his kitchen table and I said, "How do you motivate the Patriots player to excel?" He said, "I don't motivate anybody." And then he spent 2 hours telling me how he motivates people. He said Belichick will walk along, Coach Belichick will walk along with his whistle on a string, waving it, and may say, "Harry, that was a good play." Harry wouldn't take $1 million for that sentence. Some people, it's praise. Some people, it's the brotherhood. Some people, it's the money. Some people, it's the personal drive to excel. You need to find where that place is, and that's the motivation that you underpin. If you look at the schedule of this conference, brilliant speakers, virtually every avenue of treatment is explored here. We have most of the answers. We understand what addiction is. There's some debate on how you treat it, but the answers are here. What has been left behind, in my opinion, is how do you keep that person in? Young docs, young research folks need to take up the mantle as it relates to intrinsic motivation. They need to find that branch, and the new brain, the new mapping that's going on now is 1,000 times more powerful than it's ever been. So I would, if I had my brothers, I would have some of these young folks understand how important this is. I remember treating docs, medical docs, years ago, about what addiction was, and their jaws dropped on the floor. I said, 65% of all hospital beds are secondary substance abuse. No, it isn't. Sure it is. It's called esophageal varices. It's called peripheral neuropathy. It's called, the book is that it's called trauma. And while you treat the broken bones, the etiology of where those came from is lost. And I think most physicians now get it, but I would love to see an arm of these young PhD students, researchers. If I hit the lottery, I would open up a treatment center for women with their children that had substance abuse treatment, that had a college component, that had a GED component, that had a work component. We talk a lot about how addiction affects every area of your life, and it certainly does, and yet we many times treat just a portion of it. So the other thing, frankly, is, and I was talking to some friends of mine at this conference before this interview, and looking through the brochure, you see the presenters who talk about individual treatment. Individual treatment. We got to individualize the treatment. Just like you would individualize treatment if you went into an MD with a broken leg. He's not going to necessarily look at your back. He's going to fix the bones in your leg. The problem with that is, how do you individualize treatment? How do you really individualize treatment if you have 50 people in treatment? You got to keep flipping those beds. You got to be on the phone with the insurance company you're treating the chart in many cases, not the patient, and you have 6 or 7 counselors. How do you do that individually? How do you set up all those programs that I just talked about for women's treatment? The fact is, it's impossible. You can't do it. It's nice to talk about doing it, and maybe you can highlight some of those things in outpatient. You know, go to GED training and go get some employment training and so forth. So there has to be a major shift. I spoke to the governor in Massachusetts at one point where this was before there was license. I spent 14 years on the committee to get counselors licensed, and he vetoed it 2 times, and we overrode it the 3rd time. But I said, you know, the taxi driver that brought this client to the detox was licensed. He got in a licensed elevator to go up their floor. The nurse who was licensed met him at the door. The doctor, medical doctor down the hall, licensed medical doctor saw him. And then he was given over to a therapist or a counselor. The one person that spends the most time with him in treatment and is responsible for his aftercare isn't licensed. He doesn't have to have CEUs. He doesn't have to participate in a conference like this to learn the new things that are happening. So that, you know, we had a fight to change that paradigm. Speaking of which, I'll give you my biggest complaint. If you walk through this building and did a research paper on who's attending this conference, you'll find nurses, PhDs, MDs, CEOs, CFOs, managers, program directors, clinical supervisors. The smallest group of people you'll see here are therapists. Lots of reasons for that, one of which is, it costs $1,000 to come here. And then, probably another $1,000 to stay at a hotel someplace. So those are practical reasons. And one of the other reasons is the managers and the program directors, and certainly not all of them are here, but they need to turn their people loose. They need to say, you absolutely need to get down there. You need to attend as many of these sessions as you can. You need to network with other people, because this is an illness that if you don't understand it completely, how can you treat it?